Queen Nzinga versus the Empire. The warrior queen who wouldn't bow. Imagine this. You travel to negotiate peace with a foreign empire that has been stealing your people. When you arrive, their governor refuses to give you a chair. He wants you to stand while he sits. A silent message that you and your nation are beneath him. So you call one of your attendants forward, and without a word, you sit on their back as a human throne. Now you are eye to eye with the man who tried to humiliate you. This isn't a movie scene. This is Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba. And this is the energy of a woman who refused to bow. Nzinga was born around the late 1500s in the kingdom of Ndongo, in what is now Angola. She belonged to the royal Mbundu family and grew up in a world already feeling the pressure of the Portuguese slave trade. As a child, she received political and military training. She listened to councils of elders, learning how to negotiate, and watched how power moved in her father's court. By the early 1600s, the Portuguese Empire was pushing inland from the coast, using guns and alliances to capture people of the Atlantic slave trade. Ndongo's land and freedom were on the line. Nzinga's brother, the king, was struggling to hold the line. When the Portuguese demanded negotiations, he sent one person he trusted to face them, his sister. That meeting in 1622, where the governor tried to deny her a chair, was her first major appearance on the international stage. Nzinga's response told the world exactly who she was. To understand that moment, we need to understand the message behind the missing chair. In diplomacy, chairs and seating are not neutral. They signal rank, respect, and equality. By refusing Nzinga a seat, the governor hoped to force her to negotiate from a position of humiliation, as someone begging a favor, not as a sovereign representative. Nzinga saw the trap and refused to step into it. By turning her attendant into a throne, she sent her own message. I will not stand below you. If you will not honor me, I will create my own honor. This is physical symbol work. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't swing a sword, she rearranged the scene so that her dignity was non-negotiable. In many African traditions, power isn't only held in weapons. It's held in gesture, in posture, in how you carry your spirit. Nzinga turned humiliation into a ritual of resistance. The Portuguese got their treaty that day, but they also got something they hadn't planned on. A glimpse of the woman who would fight them, politically and militarily, for the rest of her life. Within a few years, Nzinga's brother died, and she became queen of Ndongo. But pressure didn't stop. Portuguese attacks and slave raids continued to tear at her people. Facing superior firepower and dangerous alliances, Nzinga was eventually forced into exile. Many rulers would have broken at this point. Nzinga pivoted. She formed alliances with fierce warrior groups known as the Imbangala, adopted some of their tactics, and rebuilt her forces in the wilderness. From this base, Nzinga struck back, raiding Portuguese positions and rival African states that supported them. War was ugly, and everyone involved was entangled in the slave trade. But Nzinga fought to keep her political space alive. Around 1630, she conquered the neighboring kingdom of Matamba. and made it her new power base. From then on, she ruled over Ndongo and Matamba together, turning Matamba into a kingdom that would resist Portugal for generations. From exile to conqueror, Nzinga refused to accept the story that Portugal wrote for her. Even when pushed out of her homeland, she found new ground and claimed it as her own. This is what we call warrior Ubuntu. Her survival depended on networks, soldiers, allies, families on the move. I am because we are became in practice, I stand because we stand. Nzinga didn't only fight with spears, she fought with alliances. When the Dutch challenged Portugal's control of Angola in the 1640s, Nzinga saw an opening. She made common cause with Dutch forces, coordinating attacks against Portuguese positions. Together, they inflicted serious defeats, including a major victory at the Battle of Combi. Think about that. Think about what that means. A black queen leading African archers and warriors, coordinating with European rivals of Portugal to strike at a colonial project from within. Nzinga didn't have the luxury of simple heroes and villains. She made hard choices in a brutal world, including entering the slave trade herself at times to keep her kingdom alive in a system designed to consume it. This is not a sanitized fairy tale. It's a story of a woman navigating a storm of colonial greed, local rivalries, and spiritual struggle, doing whatever she believed necessary to keep some measure of sovereignty. Through victories and defeats, Nzinga kept fighting into her 60s and 70s. She adapted her strategies, shifted from full war to negotiation when needed, and never stopped thinking like a queen. That's the lesson the empire didn't plan to teach us. You can resist in more than one way. Sometimes with arrows, sometimes with treaties, always with your spirit unbroken. In many Central and West African traditions, kingship isn't just a job. It's spiritual work. The ruler is tied to the land, the ancestors, and the people in a web of responsibility. Nzinga drew on this spiritual authority, whether in indigenous rites or in the Catholic symbols she used later in life. She understood that power operates in both the seen and unseen worlds. Remember Ashe, the power to make things happen. Nzinga's Ashe showed up in her refusal to be humiliated, in her ability to rebuild in exile, and in her courage to negotiate from strength rather than surrender. And here is Ma'at, balance and justice. Nzinga's world was off balance. The land was bleeding people into the ocean. Her life's work was pushing back against that tilt. However, imperfectly, to restore some measure of order for her people. When we talk about energy, this is what we mean in African terms. The alignment of courage, strategy, community, and spirit against forces that say you are less than human. Nzinga ruled into her 80s, dying in 1663 as Queen of Matamba after decades of war, negotiation, and rebuilding. After her death, Matamba remained a powerful kingdom for generations. Other queens followed her, continuing the delicate dance of resistance and survival beside Portuguese Angola. But for many of us, Nzinga was reduced to a footnote, or not taught at all. Her story was too messy, too powerful, too different from the narrative of African passivity under European rule. When you bring her story back into your mind, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You remember that black resistance to empire began long before modern revolutions, and that women were often at the front. You also remember that heroes are human, complex, flawed, and strategic. And that's good news because it means you don't have to be perfect to stand up. You just have to refuse to bow. Take a breath. Picture that throne room again. A governor trying to look down on you. No chair, no welcome. Just the expectation that you will shrink. Now picture yourself as Nzinga. Instead of shrinking, you create your own seat. You match his gaze. You refuse to negotiate from the floor. Where in your life have you been taught to stand when others sit? To accept less respect, less pay, less voice? What would it look like to create your own chair there? Your own position of dignity? Queen Nzinga's story is not here to make you wish you lived in the 1600s. It's here to remind you that the spirit that refused to bow then still lives in you now. If this episode moves something in you, join the constellation. Hit subscribe and in the comments write, "I will not bow in," and name one area of your life, work, love, community, where you'll stand taller. Because when children of the sun remember queens like Nzinga, we remember that resistance is not just an idea. It's a posture. It's a choice. It's a way of sitting in our own power. This is Children of the Sun. More stories are on the way.